Hi, gorgeous souls. It's Robbie, and I just wanted to come on today to talk to you all about an epiphany kind of that I had in the past few months, and I've discovered this also to be with some others that I've worked with, and that is when co-regulation becomes a trauma response. And for those of you who may not be familiar with co-regulation, essentially it is when we are using our own emotional resources and energy and logical thought to be present with another person to help them regulate their emotions and process difficult situations and even trauma. And a healthy expression of this is important because that's how we relate to others. We were created to be able to be there for other people in their time of need and to help them to process whatever is happening to them. And a good example of this would be a healthy adult who is helping a child who is afraid or injured or sad and working with them to reassure them and get them into a calm state. It can be sitting with a friend who's experienced grief or trauma, being present with them and being reassuring and bringing peace and calm to the situation. We can express it with our fur babies if they are afraid of thunder or fireworks, and we're there to cuddle and help them to kind of understand that it's going to be okay. Where it becomes dysfunctional is when the role of co-regulator is foisted upon us by a dysregulated or abusive person. And for most of us that have found ourselves in this role, this does originate in our formative years in our childhood, often with a very dysregulated or even very emotionally disturbed parent who may be a narcissistic or borderline personality individual who has put a child into a parentification role where the child is responsible for the well-being and regulation of the adult. And for those of us who have ever been placed in this role, what it entails is that the person who should be responsible for being able to regulate the majority of their emotions has chosen to use another individual as a landfill or toilet for the excess of their emotions that they are either not capable of or not willing to regulate and manage. And so they put the role of fixer on onto another person. And as a child, if especially the younger you are still learning to process and regulate your own emotions. You also have a limited understanding of the world and a limited capacity to be able to come up with solutions and to help or fix other people. So what this can result in is a child who has an extraordinary amount of very inappropriate emotional things and issues and topics offloaded onto them at a time when they do not have the capacity to process it. And often that is accompanied by the abuser not allowing the dumpee to have space to regulate their own emotions or express it, and everything becomes about the abuser and how they feel. And so what this ends up being for a lot of people is usually one or a combination of a few things, and that could be that at some point emotional capacity to process or deal with it is exceeded and the dumpy just completely shuts down because they can't deal with anything else. There could also be an explosion where I can't deal with anything else and I just because I can't deal with it anymore. In more extreme cases, and particularly if this is prolonged over a period of time and there's other accompanying traumas, a person can become dissociative, often to the point where not only do they just shut down or zone out, but they actually segment part of their own consciousness into another personality or part whose sole role is to be the co-regulator and process everybody else's stuff for them. And usually this happens without any full awareness on the part of the person who's experiencing it as to what's going on. Like they know something's wrong and they experience the shutdowns or the explosions or the dissociation, but they don't really have a way to express it. And particularly the younger you are, you don't have words for it. The problem, well, there are many problems with it, but this will generally carry on even later into life. So then the person who has had this role foisted on them will then try to co-regulate and fix other kids at school and your friend group and your romantic partner and your spouse and your coworkers and the crazy boss and the crazy next door neighbor and maybe somebody in your spiritual group and the guy next to you in traffic who's freaking out. And there's only so much that a person can handle before you just can't anymore. And it's completely dysfunctional and a very, very toxic way of relating with the world around you. And so for a lot of us who have had this experience is we generally do one and usually both of two different things. And that is we will be overly empathetic and rush in to save and fix people because we've been told that's our role and we're supposed to do that. And if you're a good person, you will do that. And for those who have had spiritual abuse, they drag in a higher power and say the higher power will not like you or you're not a good person if you don't do this. And that also usually happens with a survival instinct of if I don't anticipate everyone else's possible meltdowns and try to prevent them or mitigate them or fix them, something bad is going to happen to me. And for some people, something bad may have happened. You know, you could have been denied basic care, you could have been physically assaulted or verbally abused or some other way, and you bring this forward into your adult life where you become afraid of the coworkers and the bosses because I might lose my job if I don't fix things. The partner might leave me if I don't fix them. The friends might leave me if I don't fix them. The neighbor might retaliate against me, if I don't fix them. And this is a very hard thing sometimes to become aware of. Like we might know and get irritated like, hey, it's not my responsibility to fix you. But then there's this voice back here nagging us that, well, we better or else. And the only solution for this obviously is to draw boundaries with the people and boundaries with ourselves. But this is often much easier said than done, right? It's easier in theory than in practice. And part of the reason for that is even though we can logically and cognitively understand that we need to have boundaries, because we have so much trauma response stored down in our bodies, when we are confronted with a situation that appears where we need to fix somebody, we will automatically go into a trauma response, a heightened cortisol, which usually first presents as a fawning response. So we try to please the person, fix them, and calm them down. And if we can't, we might freeze for a minute. And then if we can't fix them, we get scared and we might want to go into flight and flee the situation. And if we can't, survival instinct kicks in and then it's fight, right? And a lot of times we can go through the whole spectrum of this in one interaction with one person or with the same person or the same kind of situations over and over and over again. And the only way we can actually start effectively drawing boundaries and sticking to them is to first address the trauma response that is stored down in our bodies. And so we can do that through somatic processing and root cause therapy, where we get down to what initially triggered this. And a lot of times we may be aware of an experience in our memories of where this started, we think. And that could be very well true. But a lot of times in these patterns, particularly if this originated in your family of origin, it's a generational thing. It's been going on for who knows how long. And this kind of thing was just passed down. So it can have roots far beyond our own personal experience and awareness. Once we are able to clear the trauma response out of the body, we are better able then to cognitively start addressing it and rewiring our mind, because we can see, okay, this is coming. It doesn't necessarily trigger the same cortisol and trauma response in our bodies, or if it does, it's to a much more manageable degree. And we can start differentiating between, okay, this is a legitimate situation when I need to step in and help this person, and this is a situation when it's an energy vampire, a narcissistic personality, or just somebody who likes to dump in general. Not my responsibility. I need to set boundaries with them, and I need to set boundaries with myself so that I don't rush in to save. It takes a minute to be able to get to this place. And so it's basically a three-part process. We need to first recognize that this is a tendency we have. This is a role that we have taken on. Either it was foisted upon us, or we felt inclined to do this, and recognize that we have an identity as being the regulator or co-regulator. Secondly, we need to process the trauma response out of our physical bodies so that we don't automatically go into this state when we are confronted with a situation that could trigger it. And third, after we have processed it out of our bodies, then we can start rewiring our minds to be able to understand when it's our responsibility, when it's not, and to develop and stick to effective strategies for eliminating or minimizing the times that we have to deal with this kind of situation and this kind of energy. And it's very important for us to do that, because if we don't start managing our trauma and process it and release it and get a new paradigm, we will find ourselves repeating this same kind of scenario for years and decades in all kinds of situations, with all kinds of relationships, in the workplace, with spiritual groups, with the neighbors, with everywhere, because that is our lens. And also people will pick up on our energy of, oh, this is a really great person to dump on because they're going to take it and I can victimize them and be an energy vampire and leech off of them. None of us were created to be a landfill or a toilet for anyone else. You have a purpose that you were sent for, and it wasn't to fix everybody and everything around you all the time. Yes, you want to support people, but at some point, healing and regulation is a person's own responsibility, especially if you're dealing with an adult. Like they have to step up and manage themselves. That's not your responsibility. And so, because I have decades of experience dealing with this on a personal level, and also with other people who have these similar experiences, I would love to be there to support you if you are interested in exploring this through root cause therapy and other modalities. I am Robbie Jean Miller. I can be reached at InnerPoweredLife.com. You can check out the website and find out my programs, a little bit about me. I would love to talk to you, because my mission is to help other people not to be stuck in these roles that are unhealthy and that weren't their intended purpose. Our Creator made us for our individual purposes, and that is not to fix everybody and everything around us and to be a dumping ground. So please reach out if you are interested in learning more, and I wish you all have a beautifully blessed upcoming week, and I love you all. Take care. Take time to appreciate yourself and to appreciate all of the blessings and the good things that are in your life, and I will catch you another time. Bye.